Good news, I found the script. Um, so at this point, I'd like to introduce our speaker today, and we're going to have a follow-up program basically from Jay's outstanding talk last week. And so you all know Jay Niver, longtime member and all around good guy, interested in music.
You bid on that. I'm not really a good guy, but last week I talked about songs that changed the world, one song. And this, because Solomon kind of inspired me when he shared his story about one song and one album and how he got it in Cleveland, and it changed his life. And so I'm not the speaker, I'm just a moderator. But now I'm hoping what we're going to talk about is music or musical events or songs that changed our lives, not necessarily American history. So we're not setting the bar that high, we're setting it much lower. And I've got one that I want to share with you, and it's not so much, it might have changed my life. And when I go into the backstory, you'll understand why. But I had an interaction with a musician, and I'll play, if I can get this to work, I think it will. I'm going to play a little bit of the song, and it's not one particular song. It's just, let's see here. It's just this particular musician who I interacted with, and let's see if we'll get the volume on this. Last week I couldn't. Chris, this is what I just sent you. Okay, hold on.
Otis Rush on with a round of applause for your approval. Otis Rush.
It's going to work.
There you are. Thank you. Thank you. Well, I can't quit you, baby. Well, I gotta put you down for a while. Up my happy home, baby. You made me mistreat my only child. Yes, you know I love you, baby. My love for you I could never hide. When you hear me moaning and groaning, baby, you know it hurts me deep.
I'll leave it going in the background a little bit. And it's pretty high tech for me. We'll keep it going and I can talk over it. This was shot when he was part of the American Folk Blues Tour in Europe in 1966. So I was still in high school then. I didn't know much about Otis Rush. But let's see if we can get real. I went to college at Northwestern, which is in Evanston, Illinois, in 1970. I was 18 years old. Gretchen and I both were. We share the same age. And it was a lucky place for me to land because Chicago was the mecca for blues at that time. And I got to hear almost everybody who was anybody. And there was a place called Alice's on the north side of Chicago. Now, the south side of Chicago was where all the big blues players were. You could hear everybody, Howlin' Wolf, Muddy Waters, Buddy Guy. But the south side of Chicago is not a place where Caucasians would go comfortably. But Alice's was a little place on the north side where we could catch the L down from Evanston and go there and sit in a mixed group and hear everybody who was anybody. But what's that got to do with me and Otis Rush? Because we were on the north side of Chicago, a number of good bluesmen would come up and play on campus. Siegel Schwall, I remember him, Luther Allison. But Otis Rush, my freshman year, came to play at our student union. So I'm 18 years old and I had heard of him. And it's like, oh man, I want to go hear this guy. So I go. I'm not even sure if there was any cover. It might have been a buck or two, or I don't even think it was 5, because this was a long time ago. It was 1970. Well, it's typical for a blues performance. Anyway, so stop this. So I go to this show, and there's some musicians in the audience, a number of you, and a lot of times a musician can tell when something's amiss on stage because they know, they listen, they hear things that the public doesn't hear. But in the first set, Otis Rush is playing in our student union, and people who are non-musicians know that the drummer is too freaking high or whatever. The drummer cannot keep the beat. And non-musicians can tell. And I'm going, holy, this is crazy. So after the first set ends, I walk up and introduce myself to Mr. Rush and try as comfortably as I can to say, gee, is everything okay with your drummer? And he says to me, do you play? And I'm not a religious guy, but I'm going, thank you, Lord. Yeah, I play a little. I have your records. I know your songs. He says, come on up. And he tells the other drummer to sit down. And I wish I knew the name of that drummer. It might be Fred Below, who's recorded a number with him. But this was the days before, long before cell phones. And, you know, I don't have any photo of me with Otis Rush. But so I play the second set with him. And then I'm ready to sit down because I figured, well, you'll get the other guy back up. He says, no, you stay up, finish out the gig. So I play 2 sets with him. Then at the end of the night, he says, are you busy tomorrow? Because they're coming back again on Saturday night, same place. And I said, I think I could arrange it. And he said, good, bring your own kit. You'll play with us tomorrow. So I play 2 sets with him on Friday, 1 set, the whole gig with him on Saturday. And here's the interesting part. And this is why I said, let's expand not just songs, but musical things. And so we're talking at the end of the gig on Saturday, and I don't know what I got paid back then. It was so long ago, it was probably 40, maybe $50. But he says, hey, do you want to play with me? And to this day, I have never realized if he was serious or just humoring me. And me, I'm a freshman in college, going to a classy school at Northwestern. My parents are helping pay the way, most of it. And I'm thinking, just for 1 second, boy, wouldn't this be fun? And what would my parents think if I said, oh, I'm quitting, I'm going to play blues with Otis Rush? and they wouldn't know who the hell Otis Rush was, and most people don't. He had some bad breaks, but he was just a cut below the big names. But anyway, I said, nah, we talked for a minute or two and decided it's probably best for me to pursue my career as a journalist in one of the leading J schools in America and go on to a normal life. But there have been many times since then when, and I didn't know at the time, journalists don't make crap unless you're, Dan Rather. And it's like, what if I had said, hey, yeah, I'll play with you? And my life might have taken a whole different turn. And I still don't know if he was serious about asking me that. But I mean, why? Anyway, that is my musical story about a brush with greatness. And I've got other, um, oh, why is that still up there? um, I've got other videos. If you Google Otis Rush, you can see him playing with Eric Clapton at Montreux Jazz Festival in the '80s and played into the '90s. And he was a giant among musicians, not so much with the public, but that's how I came that close to greatness, at least for 2 nights, playing with a terrific blues man who might have. Okay. And now, before I open it up to everybody else, there's ironic timing on this. Gretchen and I combined to do something that should have been done years ago. We've got a room in the basement where the cats come and go. There's a cat door. We call it the cat door room, but it's become a repository for junk. And about 40 or 50% of it is mine when I arrived here 7 years ago. And Gretchen said, hey, we need to clean up that room. And I've got another day or day and a half to sort out stuff that I brought out of there. But one of the things that Gretchen said was, here's this box of your 45s. And I said, I don't remember. I never had 45s that I can recall. But somehow they came into my possession because they weren't Gretchen's. And I spent a couple hours last night going through them. And a lot of them, this is Who's Sorry Now by Connie Francis. In the original MGM sleeve. And here's another one, The Animals, House of the Rising Sun in MGM. And I took probably 2 or 3 dozen of those that are in the original sleeve, and I spread them out on the table, one of the tables back there. You might just shuffle through them and see some memories. Now, I've got a lot more that don't have the original sleeves. They just have just a blank cover. I didn't bring those, but it just might lend you down, memory lane or some reminiscences when you go through and see all those things there. And here's one that I'll talk about if we run out of time. This is Little Eva, Locomotion, if you remember that song. And you know where she's from? You don't. Belhaven, North Carolina. And I've got the backstory on her and how she came. She was babysitting for Carole King and Carole King's partner. They were songwriters together, and they heard her sing, and they promoted her to record Locomotion. And if we run out of time, I'll talk about that. But with that, as I'm just a moderator, someone's welcome to come up and share their own musical story.
All right. I'm going to share a song that has um, uh, not not really good memories, but significant memories for me. Um, so um, so I'm going to bring up my notes first. Um, This song may have been one of the first jazz songs I ever heard. Um, it was an album with David Rose on one side and Andre Previn on the other, which I gave to my dad on his birthday because he said he liked David Rose. David Rose, in fact, was a influential pianist and composer in his own right, and he was the main musical director for the Red Skelton show. I think for the entire time that it was on TV, and our family loved to watch Red Skelton. That was one of the bright spots. Um, I had no idea who Andre Previn was, but I figured, and at this time, I think I was around 9 or 10 years old. So I figured, well, if it's David Rose on the other side, he has to like, on the side that he likes, the other one has to be similar. Well, I was really wrong about that. Um, uh, my dad referred to it as trash. He said he liked the David Rose, but the Andre Previn was trash. So that, of course, I was disappointed and sad. But a couple of years later, my mom and dad divorced, or maybe even divorced soon thereafter, not because of that. Um, and so then my first thing I was interested in was listening to the Andre Previn side. And so that is the song I'll play today that I remember most. The song is called, it's known on the album as Black and Blue, but it's from the 1929 jazz standard and racial protest song composed by Fats Waller with lyrics by Andy Rozoff. The whole song title is "What Did I Do to Be So Black and Blue?" Um, it debuted in the Broadway musical Hot Chocolates, and I believe that was 1929, and it addresses the struggles faced by African Americans in a racist society. So what I'd like to do is just play the song, and then no, actually, I'm going to read you the lyrics first. Um, because the song by Praven doesn't have the lyrics. In fact, I tried to find, I Googled and did all the searching. I couldn't find someone singing the actual lyrics themselves. Oh, Amy says she has it. So we'll get together, Amy, and I'll get that from you afterwards. Says cold, and it's sung by a woman in bed who's lamenting something, and this is her lament. Cold, empty bed, springs hard as lead, feels like old Ned. I wish I was dead. All throughout my life, I've been so black and blue. Even the mouse ran from my house. They laugh at you and scorn you too. What did I do to be so black and blue? I'm white inside, but that don't help my case, 'cause I can't hide what is on in my face. How will it end? Ain't got a friend. My only sin is my skin. What did I do to be so black and blue? So now I'll play the and Praven's song. I did listen to a rendition this morning of Louis Armstrong doing it, but it sounds nothing like it. I mean, the tune is there, but sounds nothing like it. So let me bring this up. Thank you very much. Yes, ma'am.
Um, when did you first listen to that other side of the record, which is Andre Previn that you just played?
I don't really know for sure. It's possible I heard something of it when he tried playing the other side. But my guess is that after my mom and dad divorced, that I then took the album. He didn't take it with him. In fact, I looked for it. I couldn't find it online, but I think it was within a year or so. I was curious about the other side, so I listened to it, and of course, I fell in love with it immediately. And knowing that my dad hated it, added and sent even more likeness for it.
Well, that's what I was thinking. You wouldn't, even if you were curious, you wouldn't have listened to it while it was there. So, but
Yeah, I definitely would
Yeah.
not listen to it while
Yeah.
he was there.
okay.
And I want to thank Christina for wearing the sunglasses. That helped with the mood. Oh, and Amy, I do want to get with you on that.
It's kind of ironic that you mentioned Black and Blue because I played that when I played in Dixie bands, and I have the version with Louis Armstrong, and it's real interesting that and is it Mel who you sent me the link to the 20 or 50 biggest best protest songs. Okay, Mel and not Ben, but uh, and Black and Blue is not listed there, but it was one of the earliest because what a great play. And say, well, I bruised myself, I'm black and blue, but this was saying I'm black and I'm blue because of my life and what I've been stuck with. And here's another interesting thing. When you mentioned Rose as the composer, he had a very famous song, and I just pulled it up. And who David Rose? Do you remember his most famous song? Let me see if I can play it for you. You'll know in just a second. See, yeah, this is really funny. Okay, I will. I've got it on my phone, but this is easier. Well, I'm going to plug it in. Well, I'll put the mic down. Yeah. As soon as you hear this, you will recognize it, I'm sure. Once we get through skip the ad. Okay. Wait a minute. No, I didn't turn up I've got it. No, I don't have the volume. I've got to turn it up before I go to this, we all know that song, right? Now, your dad would have approved of that one, right? So yeah, David Rose wrote The Stripper. Oh, I don't know if there were lyrics to The Stripper. Oh, The Stripper lyrics. Geez, I just thought it was so this is an organic thing where
That's another screen.
I'm on strong.
David Rose, go down one.
Oh, there we go. No, that's the definition. I'm not sure. Okay,
Song and lyrics.
okay. I don't see it.
It's right there. Is it not?
No, that it says, it doesn't say there it is. There it is, up a little. Missed the first line. There you go. Stop.
Okay, yeah. Come in and have some fun. You won't be the only one. It's bump and grind all the time, bump and grind. Just a buck, mister, to see the strippers. It's no crime. This is new for me. I would have grown up a lot quicker if I'd have found the lyrics. It's bump and grind all the time, bump and grind. So what's the matter, buddy? Ain't you a man? Sexy girls in the nude inside waiting for you, gorgeous babes up on the stage. Why are you waiting? Come on in and have some fun. You won't be the only one. It's bump and grind, just $1 or $2, blah, 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 blah. Prices have gone up a lot since this was written. Anyway, I didn't know there were lyrics to that. See what you get when you come for these
It
programs?
says at the top, new words by Joel somebody or other.
Well, yeah, 13 years ago. That's relatively recent. If he was doing this on the Red Skelton show. Oh, yeah, was it? For what? What was the product? Okay, where's some. Dun, 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 dun. Oh, take it off. Okay, who's next? With any musical story or reminiscence? Oh, we got a couple more. Come on up now.
A few. So we have Ben and Mel next and maybe a Tish after that? Yes? Okay. Possibly Fred after that. Amy has one also. We're getting somewhere.
Phone has YouTube without, okay, sorry. Ben's phone has YouTube without the ads, and my phone has them with the ads. So we decided to bring his phone. I'm going to first start with a story, though. Believe it or not, this begins in a hospital room in Birmingham. And I'm hoping I'm going to get through this. Ben had had bypass surgery, and as he was in the hospital recovering, his regular doctor came in and said, "You've got some bad news, some more bad news, and you need to go get yourself checked out. Your PSA numbers are off." And as it turned out, he did have advanced cancer, and it was a very aggressive type. And he went to two doctors in Birmingham, and they offered different treatments, and he was not happy with either one of them. And he said, "I want to go to Houston, to MD Anderson." Now, at the time, had been going to Houston a lot because our son was in school down there. And it was always a fun visit because we would have musical music set up for all sorts of places we'd go through, and we crossed the Mississippi state line every time we would play Mississippi Goddamn. And this time was going to be different. We flew instead of driving. He went with the doctor, and late in the afternoon, we took a cab to a restaurant. And as we got there, Laurel called. She is my daughter, and said, "I want you to listen to something." And she played the whole song, Bob Marley's "No Woman, No Cry." And of course we cried, like I'm going to do now. But anyway, to go back and do the next scene of the story, he got the surgery. We were back in Birmingham. It is now spring of the next year. And she calls one afternoon and says, "The Wailers are in town." That's Bob Marley's band. "And you want to meet us and we'll go hear them." And she said, "I'll get tickets and you can meet us there." And a little bit later, she calls back and says, "The woman will not sell me 4 tickets." She said, "I had to show my ID. I had to get Joe, and he showed his ID. And she will not believe me. So you've got to come on down here early." And we got there, and the woman said, "Your daughter was telling the truth. You are our people." It turns out this is a small venue in Birmingham that is on the south side. Our first house was on the south side. Laurel was born on the south side. Yes, it's hippie town. Young people live there. And when she got older, we moved to the suburbs. And when she got old enough to have her own place, she bought her first condo on south side. And so she was living on, not south side of Chicago, south side of Birmingham, but it's pretty cool anyway. And when we finally, after several beers, because we knew we hadn't got time to go back home and then come back over the mountain, we realized that there was a reason we had to get tickets early, because it was a very small venue. There was no place to sit down, no place to sit and have another beer. You had to dance, which was great because we wanted to dance. You see, the first time she played the lyrics or the song to "No Woman, No Cry," those words, the mantra of those words, "Everything's going to be all right." Heard it over and over again, and it was powerful. But this time, after smelling all the smoke in that little bitty place, that was the reason we had to be a certain age and not many people were allowed in there. We were in the mood to party, and party we did. And we heard it again. Yes. Yeah.
For the Zoom audience, Ben just said they were Bob Marley memorial cigarettes they were smoking.
Okay. I think I'm going to be able to do this. I'm punching play, but you know my fingers are always closed. Okay. Sorry. I'm just technology confused. I hadn't had a beer yet. You don't have to play that whole thing. Got a lot.
That's a nice take on music that can inspire in tough times. I've got examples of music that just depressed me. There was a time and I still have a file where I've got different collections of songs, swing, Dixieland, blues, beach, and I've got one that's titled Depressing Songs. My daughter asked about that a few years ago. Said, "Why do you have that?" I says, "Well, it's cathartic sometimes." But when I was much younger and they had the little cassette tapes that you'd put in your car, and I had my depressing songs, even then, they've evolved over the years, and I never would take that collection and play it because I was afraid to listen while I was driving. Really. One of those was Janis Joplin, Ball and Chain, live at Monterey. Another one, Not My Cross to Bear by the Allman Brothers. And I've got some others, but I did not take it into my car because I didn't trust myself. Who's got more upbeat stuff? Come on, Atish.
All right. I'll have to say right on the onset that I don't have any particular music that completely moves me, but there are certain pieces that I listen to more than the others. So I'm going to talk about a couple of them. All right.
There won't be any Q&A.
This one, I like it. It's in French, but just for the message. I mean, this is by Edith Piaf. This is probably one of her last pieces. And it's almost like her protest song. And you probably, many of you have probably heard of it. Oh, shit. That's not it. To stop it there, she's not saying that she had no regrets in her life. And this was a very powerful song for her because it was towards the end of her life and she got into a lot of trouble post Second World War for charges of collaborating with the Germans. Unlike Coco Chanel, she did not have to leave France, but because she and people like Maurice Chevalier were sort of protected by Charles de Gaulle because he was trying to rebuild France. And Edith Piaf and Maurice Chevalier were such icons that he did not want them to go down. Though clearly Maurice Chevalier had gone to Germany to perform for the Nazis. And this is another one. Bloody hell. Hang on. This one. Okay. This is in Bengal. Since you don't know Bengali, I'm going to stop it. This is a song. Bengali is my mother tongue. This was a song that was written soon after around the time of or soon after the independence in 1947 by a lyricist, composer named Sholil Chaudhary, who was very famous, and subsequently became very famous and created his whole genre of music where he blended Western classical and jazz into Indian classical music, and it was very successful. And also he was a member of an organization called IPTA, Indian People's Theatre Association, which is a famous, now it is not as popular because it is not very popular to be a socialist, but it was a communist organization in those days with a lot of members from very famous musicians, singers, artists, writers, etc., etc. And he was one of the leading lights of that for composition. And he had to go into hiding because the Brits were looking for him because they were considered his stuff seditious. This song talks about the failed promises of independence. Because soon after independence, on the time of the huge Hindu-Muslim sort of civil war happened, the war with Pakistan happened in 48, so he's talking about that. He's speaking about that. And by the way, you should know the best protest music I have in the English genre has to be The Wall.
Should we close it up or? Okay. Come on up. Dan or Amy?
Well, the story behind this one is from 10th grade. And it's kind of the first piece of music that made me think that I could like play some music. And so we had a concert band in my high school. And this was the music that we played for the solo and the band competition in Michigan. So this is the Manzoni Requiem. And why they chose this one, I don't know, because there were very few Catholics in our town. But it's a great piece of music, and I'll play just a little bit. It begins with this huge series of scales. And the flutes kind of have the loudest part if they're not overshadowed by the trumpets. So here it is. That's probably, that's the best part.
Yeah, what about it? Oh yeah. Oh, that's a great one. Classic. I'm not giving these away, by the way.
So I had a very similar story uh, as the one that you just heard. And so because of that, I decided to do something different. Um, in uh, when I was in high school and younger, I really didn't like funk kind of music. I thought it was not something I wanted to listen to at all when I was in college. Country rock was the big thing that guys my age in the mid 70s listened to. But I took up the bass a while ago, which caused me no end of trouble because I could read treble clef because I played the cornet for years in high school and stuff. But learning bass clef was tough. And so after I started playing the bass, I realized I really like funk music. It's really cool. And so I had downloaded an album onto my phone about a week before I went over to Solomon's house. For the first time, we were working on a program we did here anyway. And so I was surprised to see this particular album right there on, he has 50 gazillion albums. And so this is a song from the album that I downloaded that I wanted to play. Oh, wait a second. Before we do that, I have to take it off of Bluetooth. Here we go. Let me start it over again. Wait a second. Here we go. That's for solid. If you play the bass, well, I think you get the idea. That's Sissy Strut by the Meters.
One more. Who wants to come on up, Maura?
Music was around in my life pretty much as long as I can remember because my father was always play classical, jazz, New Orleans, all this kind of stuff. My brother, of course, my older brother was into heavy metal, which is still really not my thing. But so I grew up playing the piano. I grew up singing. I did a lot of singing things. And the second time I was a sophomore in college, which is a totally different story, I signed up for an introduction to jazz class, which looked really cool. And the guy who taught at UNC was really good. It was a big lecture class, but he played all these different styles. He started with some very old stuff and went forward. And most music that I had really connected with before then, in a lot of ways, often had words, because that's the other thing that I grew up with a lot around me. My father was an English professor. My parents were publishers. My father was a writer. There's words everywhere. But I discovered, because of having had this played for us, a song that did not need words to totally move me. And it still does today. And I didn't even know the story of it at that time. In fact, learning it later, I kind of fault the jazz teacher for that. He really should have told us a little bit about it. But I don't know how many of you know this song. It's a song called Alabama by John Coltrane. And in fact, in September 15th, 1963, the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing, and 4 little African American girls were killed. And this is essentially a lament for them. Nothing's happening, wait. That pretty much, that's just the first little bit. That gives you the idea, though. You can feel what he's saying in this music. He did not need words. But I didn't want to leave it on that sort of note, as profound and beautiful as I think that song is. So another very brief thing, my father remarried. He met the woman he remarried about a year after my mother died, and they got married about a year after that. And they were together for a bunch of years, and he died fairly unexpectedly. He was 71, so he wasn't particularly old, and it was quite a shock to all of us. And you know, my brother and I came down into Charlotte, and Anne's children and so forth. And Anne pretty much ran the show because she's like that. And she wrote an appalling obituary and did a lot of things that we didn't really care for. And he had essentially 2 funerals. He had one funeral in Charlotte at the time, and then one later in the mountains, because most of his family couldn't even make it to the one in Charlotte because she planned it so quickly. And I'm not big on being in churches, and it was in the Episcopal Church there, and I really didn't enjoy that. But that said, when the recessional music for this first funeral, the organist started playing, and I laughed and cried. And I will just sing 1 or 2 first lines, and I know you will know this song. Oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, when the saints go marching in, oh, Lord, I wanna be in that number when the saints go marching in.
With that, I guess we'll turn it over to you, Fred. I will say a couple things. You talk about growing up in music. There was a time Gretchen and I had, in our home, we had 3 pianos at one time. Dad had 2 player pianos in the basement with big shelves full of the rolls, and he would refurbish them and electrify them so they could play without you pumping on the pedals. And of course, Gretchen had the baby grand piano upstairs. So it's kind of unusual to have 3 pianos at one time, and Gretchen still has that baby grand. It's in her house. And one other thing I'll say, when I was growing up, and I was into big band stuff when I was still in high school, and Gretchen was much more the social butterfly than I ever was. And I got invited to a party one time, and people would bring the music that they wanted to play, and everybody was doing Beatles and whatever. And I brought a big swing band, Buddy Rich's band. And when I tried to put that on, it didn't get a good reception, and I never got invited to any parties after that. So that's my excuse for turning out the way I am.
All right. Thank you all for your contributions.